The baptism of children reveals some of the best things about church in belief and practice. Symbolically, a child, or on this Sunday, 2 children, are at the center of this rite. For this moment, our usual concerns, that is to say, adult concerns and priorities, are put to one side, and our focus, the grace in our midst, is a child. In the Bible, there are 4 books, Gospels, about Jesus, or rather what his followers remembered and thought about Jesus. In 2 of those books, Jesus is never a child. He arrives on the scene, abracadabra, as an adult. And this is not surprising in an adult-centric world. The rights of children, particularly those not of the wealthy classes, are minimal. Their literal survival was due to the decision of the male head of the house. They were adults in training, awaiting the day when they had the rights that came with adulthood. In the Bible readings today, we have Jesus' disciples acting as brokers, determining who could have access or not to Jesus. Children had little power and were seen as of little use, so the disciples kept them away. Jesus, however, rebuked his brokers. He wanted the children to have access. But he went further. As the disciples talked about who was the greatest in terms of influence, or maybe affluence, or wisdom maybe, Jesus turned to the children and placed them at the center. The 2 books in the Bible that did tell of Jesus as a child also made some grand statements about this child. Not statements just about how the child would be when he was an adult, but about the child now. Yes, I know, what we call the Christmas stories were written much later than the rest of the Gospels. And yes, I know the writers weaved all sorts of themes into those stories, bathed baby Jesus with divine accolades, and festooned his arrival with the wonder of angels, magi, and a wandering star. But at the heart of all these stories is a theologically and culturally perplexing, upside-down mystery. God is here in our midst as a child. Grace and hope and light came as a child, the one bottom on the tree. I don't think the disciples or the gospel writers and editors, or even us today as church folk, understood and understand what this means. And neither do I. So what follows are a couple of guesses. Firstly, I guess it means the child is the most important or the greatest thing. There is a lot of talk by a lot of people, by a lot of cultures, about how much we value children. But talk is easy. Action is much harder. Our current government, for example, 4 years ago, talked about prioritizing children, especially children in poverty. But then other concerns jumped to the front of the queue, as they do. 1 week it might have been housing shortages. Another week, economic concerns. Another week, gun control. And then there was the pandemic. I'm not trying to bag our current government. I'm trying to point out that with the best will in the world, the needs of children are pushed away from the front of the priority queue, as has been the case, government after government, of whatever hue, decade after decade. Good outcomes for children when they happen, seem to be usually a byproduct of a policy directed towards adults, like when their parents get more cash in hand. So to this week, do we adults really care enough about New Zealand children to tell soft drink manufacturers to lower sugar levels when many of us adults quite like to have the choice to buy sugary drinks, or are reluctant to tell other adults they can't have a choice? I would be surprised, sadly, if children's teeth, children's health is prioritized ahead of adult sensibilities. That's not our track record. I would be surprised because despite the rhetoric of all cultures in this land, we do not value children. Their needs, their safety, their education, their health do not go to the head of the queue. No matter who is in charge, no matter what culture you're talking about. Ask the children's commissioners over the last decades. And I think we would be better off to say it. Say that we do not value children, rather than pretend otherwise or go about blaming parents or benefit levels or oranga tamariki or governments that we didn't vote for. Admit our failings. So God as a child is a deeply confronting image. Like with those first disciples, it confronts what we value, who we think should be first or last, and what we think our priorities as cultures, businesses, community organizations, and churches should be. That's my first guess. My second guess is that God as a child infers that children have a lot to teach us about the soul. I'm reminded of Bob Fulgham's All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And he lists: 1, share everything. 2, play fair. 3, don't hit people. 4, put back things where you found them. 5, clean up your own mess. 6, don't take things that aren't yours. 7, say sorry when you are hurt, or when you hurt someone. Wash your hands, 8, before you eat. 9, flush. 10, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. 11, live a balanced life, learn some and drink some and draw some and paint some and sing and dance and play and work every day some. 12, take a nap every afternoon. 13, when you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands and stick together. 14, be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the polystyrene cup? The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why. But we are all like that. 15, goldfish and hamsters and white mice, and even the little seed in the polystyrene cup, they all die. So do we. 16, and then remember the Dick and Jane books, and the first word you ever learned, the biggest word of all: look. Bob's list is a delightful and fun reminder, though I'd probably change a few things now. Importantly, it reminds us that there are things in childhood that nurture and nourish the soul. And as we grow older, we can forget how fundamental they are. Like sharing is not just a social, economic, or political strategy. Something happens to us when we give or share what we have with others. as one children's book says, we feel all sunny inside. Like hitting and hurting and sorry are not just about fracturing and mending relationships. A smile, affirmation, kind words, kind deeds, attentive and empathetic listening, received or given, enlarge our soul. Like going out, watching for traffic, holding hands and sticking together. These are the actions and orientations of a community for building social support and cohesion, but also for feeding our soul. We are communal creatures, and our soul is truly at home when with trusted others. Like eating, drinking, drawing, painting, singing, dancing. When did you last draw or paint a picture? Or sing or dance some? No matter how skilled or unskilled we are, there is something in the doing that does something inside us. And children seem much more ready to give it a go. And like wonder and look, prayer is about wonder and look, much more so than any words or pious thoughts. Prayer is about opening your soul to be lost in the magic and mystery of all it is. It's about an awareness of the sacred in everything. Our first reading today was a poem called The Facts of Life by the poet and spiritual teacher, Padraig Ó Tuama. Back in March, he was in New Zealand, but unfortunately his retreat here in Auckland was cancelled due to COVID. The poem includes these verses: that life is sometimes good and sometimes better than good. That life is often not so good. That life is real, and if you can survive it well with love and art and meaning given where meaning's scarce. Life flows. Sometimes good and great things happen. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes hard and bad things happen. But survive, thrive in its reality, with a wee helping of meaning given to others, but more importantly, with ladles of love and art. I think the grace a child holds out to us is love and art. The love of trust, touch, responsibility, nurture, protection, and joy. And the art of spontaneity, adventure, enthusiasm to give it a go, play and fun. And it is in baptism that we celebrate these great gifts to our soul, and return the blessing. Blessings to you.